Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
And hello again, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider TV alongside the Hot Rod, Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. This past Saturday, everybody, there have been a lot of great Alabama-Tennessee games. I don't know if this is a great game, but the outcome was certainly great, and it was a weird game, a tale of two halves, as the Tennessee Volunteers look like they might get an opportunity to blow Alabama out in this one and win 2 in a row. Their fans thought they were going to come in here and win 2 in a row after they upset Alabama last year, Knoxville 52-49. Rod, let's get to the video on this one. Alabama, though, in the second half, this was a game that was 20-7 Tennessee at half, and you're thinking the way Alabama can, play offense and doesn't score a ton of points, that at best you're going to win in the final seconds. But I got to tell you, the second half, again, shows what this team can be. Rodney, they came out, they took the opening kickoff, 29-yard run by Jace McClellan, then a touchdown pass from Milroe to Bond, and the next thing you know, it's 20-14, and it really felt like the second half had not even started. So we're watching some first half highlights here, but that second half started fast for Alabama, and they really never let up.
They didn't. I mean, it's 20-7 at half. Alabama outscores them 34-7. I mean, it was really an incredible, incredible performance there. Actually, it was 20-7, Gary, and they outscored him 27-0. So it was a really, like you said, got started fast. The play with McClellan kind of got things going, and then, the throw to Isaiah Bond opened the gates, and here's that run by Jace McClellan right off the bat in the second half. So, again, I thought Alabama really bounced back extremely well. As you mentioned, they didn't play well in the first half, but this is a team, Gary, we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. They're a team that one half they play really well, the next half maybe they don't play as well, or vice versa. This was the script where they played well in the second half.
Yeah, and if they ever put 4 quarters together, look out. Maybe it'll be against LSU a week from Saturday night. 34-20 the final, and a big win in a lot of ways. First of all, you go ahead and you nip Tennessee's winning streak at 1. Okay, after winning 15 in a row, you lose. You get right back on the winning track. You broke their fans' hearts. They were a very confident fan base, confident football team. I mean, I got the impression that the players, the coaches, and their fan base thought they were going to roll in here to Tuscaloosa, and you see Bama fans lighting up the cigars, roll in here to Tuscaloosa and put another whipping. Now, not necessarily a whipping, but win the game against Alabama.
I mean, sometimes you look at body language, you get a feel, you get an impression, Gary. And I thought in the second half, watching Tennessee, they looked a little flat-footed. It was almost like they went into halftime and they thought this game was over. And, obviously, it wasn't quite that way.
All right, we're going to kind of skip past the first half because, Alabama I don't think could have played any worse. And they were only down 13. That was the good news. And that took a touchdown by Tennessee really right before halftime to get that advantage. But in the second half, they did so much well. But let's talk about what they can do better. And let's start with consistency on the offense. Again, we're starting to see this offensive line mature. I think Roberts at right guard has been huge in the run game. Kind of like the Ole Miss game. They leaned on Tennessee. That's a good defensive front. They wore them down the second half. The run game was there. Milroe looked, like you've talked about, just when he's in rhythm, he's a good-looking quarterback. Plus, they use the quarterback run game. Those are positives for that offense because you would like to see this type of performance for 4 quarters in a game.
Yeah, and again, I think the consistency, like you said, it hasn't been there, but Gary, they have a lot to build on. I think you saw more personnel get involved. We saw that in the first half. Kendrick Law on the jet sweeps. They tried some screens. They're trying to do some varied things, diversify a little bit. So that was something good to see. But in the second half, you're right. I mean, I think this offensive line continues. It's still a work in progress, but it is getting better. I think Caden Proctor played a little better in this game. And you mentioned Jaden Roberts and his emergence at right guard. And again, I think Jace McClellan going for over 100 yards. That running game, as it continues to develop, I think this is really going to help Alabama. But let's say this about Milroe running the ball. You remember there was a third or second 15, whatever it was, 3rd and 15. He made a big run there. I think if we could see Milroe pull the ball down a few more times, I think he could do some things with his legs that could really help this offense.
I agree. And defensively, I give Tennessee a lot of credit. They had a really good plan to start the game. I think Alabama was prepared to stop the run. They came out throwing 9 for 9. Milton started in the game. I told you if he plays like this the whole game, Alabama was going to lose. And his 10th pass will hit the guy right in the numbers for his first incompletion. He played great in the first half. They had a great plan. But I said, if Milton's a good quarterback, this is not who he is, though. He is going to not keep this up for the whole game. If Alabama can just hang in there, he'll show you who he is. Incomplete. Got sacked, the strip fumble, great play by Braswell, picked up by Campbell. That Alabama defense, though, they shut Tennessee out in the second half. So Alabama wound up winning by 2 touchdowns, but the truth of the matter is they won by 2 touchdowns. They scored, as you said, 27-0. They could have scored 14-0 and won the game because the defense was so good in the second half.
Yeah, again, I think there were some adjustments that Nick Saban talked about, in terms of the defensive front. They changed that, got a little more pressure, I think, on Milton, got him out of rhythm, did some things different defensively that, certainly there you see Trey Amos right there making a play when he had to come in for Terrion Arnold. So, again, defensively, they made those adjustments. And, what did we talk about after last year's game? They didn't make the adjustments in the second half. They made the adjustments and pretty much dominated the second half.
Special teams, Will Riker, knock on wood, has not missed a field goal this year. He hit a big 50-yarder in this game. The punting with Burnip has been good. The coverage has been good. Kickoff coverage and kickoff returns have been okay. All right, I got to ask you, though, about Kool-Aid McKinstry. He was terrific in this game at cornerback, so let's go ahead and give him credit for that. In the punt return game, though, he's struggling. I don't know any way to put it. He caught one punt, took a 7-yard loss. The rest of the punts he didn't field, including one late in the game after Alabama went up by 14. He calls fair catch, doesn't field a punt at about the 25. It bounces down to the 1-yard line. That's something that has to be addressed, right? Whether you put somebody else back there by themselves, or you put somebody else back there with him. You can't go into LSU with just him back there if he's not going to catch the punts.
Yeah, it looks like he's lost confidence. I mean, I really thought that last one, he didn't want any part of it. And again, it was a very catchable ball. I mean, it's something that he should not have had an issue with. I'm not really certain exactly what's going on, if somehow he lost the ball. So it's really hard to say. But at the same time, it looked like it was a very catchable ball. If he's lost confidence, you may have to try someone else.
Jahad Campbell is the Bronco Nagurski Defensive Player of the Week. And that inside linebacker position, we were kind of worried about going into the season. But with Campbell, Lawson, and Marshall, that's kind of become a 3-headed monster for 2 positions. But all 3 of those guys have played great.
I think the linebackers as a whole, the group, the outside, the inside linebackers, I mean, it's really a strength. It's something that, maybe over the last few years has not played quite to that standard that we had seen, but I think they're playing extremely well, Gary. And we talked about Jahad Campbell back in the summer. We said, this is a guy, keep an eye on. He could be an emerging star. I mean, he's a 5-star rated player coming out of high school, as a lot of these kids are. But, no, Jahad has played extremely well.
Before we get to Coach Talk, this bye week, coming after 8 straight weeks of playing football, you got to where you wanted to be. You're 5-0 in the SEC. How big is this bye week, and what does Alabama need to get done? Because LSU's on bye, too, to be ready for the game a week from Saturday night.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the grind of going like 8 straight weeks, obviously it's extremely difficult. The opportunity for some of these guys to get rested. I know that they have some bumps and bruises. A guy like Malachi Moore, for example, it gives them an opportunity to get healthy. But also psychologically, Gary, I think it gives you a chance to kind of sit back, relax, recover, and then as you start to enter that preparation, you've kind of got a renewed focus.
All right, Rod, it is now time for Coach Talk. And Alabama is coming up on its bye week, and while the players may have a bit of a break, the same can't be said for the coaching staff. Nick Saban was in Birmingham for the Monday morning quarterback club meeting yesterday, and he talked with the media, and he talked about the staff's approach during this off week.
I don't know. Is there an analytical way for anybody to know whether I need a break? You ever think of that? I mean, we got all these young bucks out there coaching. I know they don't make them like they used to. All right, but you ought to be worried about me, not them. Shit. I'm pushing the coaches to keep on keeping on so that we can get better, analyzing what their players need to do at their position individually and collectively as a group, and what we need to do as a team to try to improve as a team.
Yeah, he sets the tone. He's going to keep on working. This staff is going to be working. Now, they will get a couple of days off later in the week, and I think they'll be off on Friday and Saturday. Although Friday night they'll be out recruiting. Saturday, I think they'll take it off. Sunday, they'll get back in and start preparations for LSU. But it is a nice break. Saban even said so after the game on Saturday night, that after 8 straight weeks, you need one. But that doesn't mean it's a vacation, right?
No, like you said, I think there's obviously a lot of recruiting that goes on in terms of evaluating these coaches and be out looking at prospects, doing those types of things. And then, again, you talk about getting into next week in terms of the preparation, Gary. I mean, you've got to, there's one thing about it. You have the week off. Yeah, there are some advantages to it, but you can't lose that focus. And I think that's something that hopefully this time off will help them kind of get that rest, but at the same time sharpen that focus.
And this is some practice video from this afternoon from Christopher England and the University of Alabama. Normally Tuesday is a full pads practice, but obviously with no game on Saturday, they're out there in shells today. And again, going to get some work in at the first of the week, take a little time off. And then I think it's important, Rodney, as we wrap this segment up, that Sunday the players come back laser focused and understand that as in good a position as they're in, because the West is so difficult and LSU just has one loss in conference play to Ole Miss. If LSU wins that game, they have the tiebreaker. So in essence, they would control their own destiny. So even though you're unbeaten, there's no margin for error.
Yeah, and I'm not predicting what's going to happen in the LSU game tonight, but I'll say this, Gary. I think this team has a special mindset. I think they have that focus. Even though they're a young team and they've had a lot of immaturity, I think you're starting to see a team that is maturing, and I think that they're feeling really good about themselves in terms of, hey, you know, this is what our goals are. This is what we want to do, and that focus is there. I'd be really surprised if this team isn't focused next week.
Yeah, Nick Saban loves coaching this team and watching them get better. Listen, when they were 2-1, coming off a loss at home to Texas and a terrible performance in South Florida, not a lot of people said they would go 5-0. And then those next 5 games in the SEC stretch, they did it, Rodney.
Well, most people buried them.
Yeah, I picked them to lose to Texas A&M and haven't heard the end of it. But they're right where they need to be. All right, still to come on Tider Insider TV, Nick Dunlap continues to impress as maybe the best amateur golfer in the world. Another exciting and terrific accomplishment for the UA sophomore. Also, Alabama men's basketball at the SEC tip-off event last week over in Birmingham. We'll have more coming up. And also, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. You can email us or you could tweet at us on X, I guess it is. I keep calling it Twitter, but Twitter/X. We want to hear from our fans in just a little bit. So we'll be back with more of the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV.
Shows how smart you guys are. So I'll take 5th. If you can pick us 5th again next year, that'd be great. So, I mean, look, I think the preseason polls are great. We like to get a lot of fan interest around the programs. I think SEC basketball has been raised to a new level at a record number of teams in the tournament. I think a lot of this stuff is to generate fan interest.
And welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris, and that, of course, was Alabama men's basketball coach Nate Oates' thoughts on Alabama's preseason rankings by the media during last week's SEC tip-off event in Birmingham. Alabama picked 5th again, Rodney. I think that's the 3rd year in a row they've been picked 5th. And 2 of those years, 2 out of the last 3, they won the SEC regular season and tournament championship, were a number 2 seed in the tournament, then a number 1 seed in the tournament, the number 1 overall seed, and went to the Sweet 16 both years. So I don't think he minds being picked 5th, Rodney. And what's amazing about this team this year, and we've got to see how they're going to do, but it looked pretty good from what I'm told again on a scrimmage on Sunday against TCU. This roster has basically had to be turned over. I mean, they lost, we've talked about it on the program before, all those guys, the NBA, transfers, Quinterly leaves late, and all of a sudden you're talking about a team who believes it can compete for an SEC championship again and get in as a high seed in the NCAA tournament. That's a testament to Nate Oates' understanding of how to recruit, how to use the portal, NIL as well. He is a modern coach that doesn't look at these things as negatives, but as rather a positive, and just understands that year to year, this is the way it's going to be in basketball. You're going to have to replenish your roster every season, Rod.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks like he's done a tremendous job at that, you know, Gary. And again, you talk about the predictions, and I agree. I mean, it's obviously just for fan interest, but at the same time, you have to look at it and say, how can you even really predict? I mean, these predictions are very difficult to make because, I mean, like you said, I mean, it's a totally different roster.
Rod, interesting note here is that Alabama's known for its offense, but he always says, Coach Oates does, it's about defensive intensity. Defensive efficiency, 2 of the last 3 years, they led the SEC. They won the conference championship both those seasons and tournament title. So he always says, you know, we're going to shoot, we're going to score, but if you don't guard people, you know, you're not going to win games. So I think that's what makes Alabama unique. It's how well they play on the offensive end, but the fact that they really get after you defensively too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a key. I mean, you look at most successful programs in anything, any sport, defense is, you know, certainly where it starts. And I think, you know, because of the success they've had, you talk about the defensive efficiency, you know, they've had success in terms of, you know, how the outcome has been. So, yeah, look forward to seeing that. And a lot of these newcomers, Gary, I know we've talked about several of them, very exciting. Even though you are remaking a team, to see some of these newcomers that we hear so many things about, positive things about, I think it makes it really exciting.
You do it with talent. We've talked about what Coach Saban did when he got here. His first year, 07 and 08, they didn't have a single player drafted. Not a single one. Now Alabama leads everybody. 10 Alabama players, either on active rosters or two-way contracts, to open this season in the NBA, which opens tonight. You went through a period where if you had one or two guys, 10 guys now, most of those played under Nate Oates.
They're taking the next. They're taking the next step. I mean, the level of this basketball program, and obviously, like you mentioned, I mean, where they've gone into the NCAA tournament the last 2 years, it's obvious, and I think there's maybe excitement as high as it's ever been.
That secret scrimmage we mentioned, Alabama fell to TCU 85-81, but the Tide was without a lot of players. Freshman forward Sam Walters, 29 points, 7 of 12 from 3, and Aaron Estrada had 19. Mark Sears did not participate. And Grant Nelson, the North Dakota State transfer, had 13 points and 9 rebounds. This is going to be a good basketball team this coming season. All right, we are going to talk about Alabama golfer Nick Dunlap, who continues to shine on the amateur circuit by leading his team to the Team USA to the victory at the 2023 World Team Amateur Championship on Saturday at the Abu Dhabi Golf Club. This guy has just been phenomenal, man. I mean, he's won everything there is to win this year. Coming back for his sophomore season at Alabama, you can then expect him to turn pro. But what a year for Nick Dunlap, and he's a major reason Alabama is a national championship contender in 2024. Well, still to come on TITV, the Crimson Tide in the NFL, including a big matchup between two of Bama's former quarterbacks, Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. And we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. We want to talk with you next. Another big weekend for Bama in the NFL, and we know that there's a lot of guys to talk about. We're a little short on time, so we're going to get right to the biggest game of the weekend. Sunday night, Jalen versus Tua, Eagles-Dolphins. Eagles win 31-17. But, Rodney, I think what's interesting is we're going to get through this fairly quickly, is that the entire weekend between ESPN and NBC, and this was an Alabama recruiting video. Saban was everywhere. Both these guys have epitomized class and mutual respect since they competed against each other, and for them to have the spotlight Sunday night, I think it was big for them, but big for Alabama football too.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, it's a tremendous opportunity there for so many players that were in there from Alabama.
I think it was 11 or 12 guys on both teams.
12 guys. It was incredible.
It was. Like I said, it was a recruiting video. All right, welcome back into the program. We're going to get right to the phone calls. Dale in Manville is first up. Hey, Dale, how are you?
Hey, guys, roll tide, man. Just wanted to say that was my first Alabama-Tennessee game. I've been to a whole lot of games. Yeah. There was a great atmosphere. That was one of the best atmospheres, and it was the most satisfying win to me that I've ever been to, even though it wasn't the greatest played game, but it was the most satisfying game. And I don't care if we got a break, guys, but I just wondered, did we get a break on that fair catch call? What is the rule on that?
Okay, you're talking about the Tennessee fair catch. It was ruled. They spotted it back at the 4-yard line. Technically, from what I understand, the rule was correct. Maybe it's one of those deals like when you got the blindside block behind the play for Alabama Texas A&M game. Maybe the official could have let it go. But just like that play was called, this play was called. From what I understand, it was the right call. Tennessee coach Josh Heupel, wasn't happy with the officiating, which after Alabama got 14 penalties for 130 yards up there last year, he got 8 for 55. But technically, Rod, I understand it was the right call.
Well, I mean, if he motioned with his hand, I didn't see. Actually, I didn't even notice it, and then we saw what happened. But yeah, I mean, if he motioned for the fair catch, it's a fair catch.
All right, missed what they told me. We're going to take another phone call here. Is it James? All right, James is in Alabama. Okay, well, that's good to know. I'd like to know the town, James. But good evening. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Calling about Helena running back Jordan Washington. I just wonder if Alabama was recruiting him.
Yeah, they told me you said Vestavia, but Jordan Washington's having a heck of a year. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. He's scoring a lot of touchdowns. He's been almost unstoppable. Rodney's my recruiting guy, so I'll turn to you. What do you know about Jordan Washington, running back at Helena?
Yeah, look, what you know. I mean, Gary, I know that they want a running back, and look, Daniel Hill's kind of the guy.
Yeah.
He was here this week from Meridian. Of course, they're looking at some other guys. We know the local kid, Kevin Riley. I mean, is he still in the mix? Of course, he's obviously been committed to Miami for a while. A lot of things can change between now and December, the initial signing day, the early signing day. Of course, you still have the one in February. So a lot of things can change in terms of the evaluation process and how they feel about which running back they want to take.
All right, I thought you might be talking about Jordan Ross, the defensive end from Vestavia, is committed to Tennessee. A lot of people have asked about him. Is Alabama recruiting him at all?
They had recruited him some, Gary, but I think it was pretty well known that Jordan Ross was probably headed out of state. Like you said, committed to Tennessee. Obviously, he looked at Florida really hard as well.
All right, we'll be back after this. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to TITV. Let's get right to our email question of the day, and it's brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. KDM Service Corporation for all your heating and air conditioning needs, serving your family like our family. This is from Paul and Hoover, and really this is more of a observation and a stat, which I love. Game days this season are the same as in 1961. In 1961, the Tide scored 34 points to beat Tennessee and went on to win the SEC and national championships. That's from Paul and Hoover. So maybe that's a good sign, Rod.
Maybe so. Maybe so. You know, 1979, we talked about that game. Alabama fell behind
about the press box.
Yes, they did.
Fell behind 17-0, stormed back to win 27-17. Not too much unlike Saturday. So good things happen when Alabama has some big wins against Tennessee, that's for sure. You don't have many. It's hard to have great things happen when you lose to Tennessee. Let's just say that. So, all right, one more time for one more phone call. Let's get to our pal Rick over in Brent. Hey, Rick.
Hey, how are y'all tonight?
Doing well.
Great. What in the world is wrong with Brooks? Is he suspended or hurt or both? Or is he going to end up like Billingsley did? Thank you.
Brooks?
I'm not really sure who he's referring to.
I wish I'd kept him on the line. I'm not. Oh, Ja'Cory Brooks, the wide receiver. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I just think that for whatever reason, he hasn't played a lot.
You know, look.
That's why I guess I couldn't think of him.
Yeah, Ja'Cory, I think maybe he didn't have the best summer, and it just seemed to carry over into camp. And you know, for whatever reasons, I don't know if he's nicked up. Yeah. Whatever it is.
You got to compete at Alabama, and that means whether you're a new player or a veteran player. All right, we'll be back to wrap up TITV. No predictions this week because we don't have a game. We'll see you in a few minutes. All right, that's going to do it for TITV. A replay tonight at 10:30. You can find it anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you a video tonight of Alabama players at a function last night at the T-Mobile store down 69 South in Tuscaloosa. Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Kendrick Blackshire, and Deontay Lawson all signing for the fans. Good night, everybody.